Call to order for the Watertown City Council meeting for July 5th, 2022. Please rise as Councilman Vilhauer will lead us in prayer.
Thank you, Mayor. Dear Heavenly Father, we gather day after Independence Day for our country, and we are so grateful for what we have as a country. We can't help but feel like some of the events of the weekend took some of the enjoyment out of it, but we know that we are so blessed to live in the country that we have and the community of Watertown. Now we want to ask that a special blessing upon volunteers and employees of this community, and also ask you give us the wisdom to make decisions tonight that are pleasing to you. And all God's people said, amen.
Manager Mack, would you please call the roll?
Bueller.
Here.
Danforth.
Here.
Colleen.
Here.
Polson. Shuddy.
Here.
Tupper.
Here.
Vilhauer.
Here.
Thank you.
Quorum established. The chair will now entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
Made by Councilman Danforth, seconded by Councilman Bueller. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Oh, sorry, Councilman Shuddy. Yes, Councilman Danforth.
I'd like to have item G pulled and put on the regular agenda, if at all possible.
That is acceptable. I can put it at the end.
Yeah, I think we just need to, there's no information related to that other than the statement, so I think it should at least be communicated as to what that is.
Thank you. Any further comments on the approval of the consent agenda? Hearing none, the motion is to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Now is the time for public comment. If anyone is here who would like to address the City Council about something that is not on tonight's agenda, now is your time to do so. Councilman Vilhauer?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to take this opportunity to express my appreciation to our first responders, our police department, fire rescue. People may recall that just under 2 months ago there was a tragic accident out in front of Bramble Park Zoo. A little girl was hit by a car, and the little girl was not even expected to survive at that time, but she has done remarkably well and is now home and doing rehab at home. And anyway, yesterday in church, her grandmother, who's a pastor, who was at the scene when that happened, got up and commented about her granddaughter, and she had nothing but praise to say for the response that she got from our local police department and fire rescue. That definitely feel like that was a big part of why her granddaughter survived the incident. So I just wanted to pass that along, and kudos to our police and fire personnel.
Thank you very much. Any Councilman Tupper?
Okay, first off, I'd just like to say, wow, what a fireworks show we had last night. What a weekend, a great weekend that Watertown was able to celebrate and outdid themselves again this year. But couldn't have happened without a lot of people behind the scenes that nobody even knows about. But first off, I'd like to take time to thank the people that stepped up and sponsored. So I got a list here. It's going to take me a minute or two. But First Premier Bank Card, Stones, Prairie Stop, McKeever's Vending, Heilman Homes, Elite Sewer and Drain, Dakota Tube, Creststone Companies, Dakota Land Credit Union, Sign Pro, Watertown Ford Chrysler, Watertown Community Foundation, Watertown Municipal Utilities, J&J Land Sales, First Bank and Trust, Glacial Lakes Energy, Max Steel, Reliabank, Watertown Box, Lake Area Technical College, Craig Properties, Evolution Power Sports, Active Heating, First Interstate Bank, Glacial Lakes Rubber and Plastics, Plains Commerce Banks, Cowboy Country Stores, Dakota Bodies, Dakota Bank, McDonald's, Hometown Building Center, Midco, Pivotal Health, Montgomery's Furniture, Custom Fab, Dakota Butcher, Magic Mile Casino, Persona, Tight Machinery, Dan and Sandy Albertson, Glenn and Darla Vilhauer, Rafe Mack, and Ray Mack. Those are the people that spent their money to put that show on, and boy, was it ever a show. If you guys missed it, you missed a big one. But there's a lot of people behind the scenes that I leaned on for, I don't know, there's not too many departments in the city that I didn't ask something from. You know, and probably the forestry and the wastewater treatment plant was about the only ones. But, you know, this community is such a great community that every department head I talked to, I mean, they were so good to work with. You know, from our police and fire department to the park and rec department. And, God, I know even the finance department, the girls over there were getting tired of hearing from me. But they, everybody just stepped up to the plate. I know I'm forgetting some. Or street department, Robin, the street department. Everybody was so great to work with that I can't wait until next year. Let's get it bigger and better next year. So I just wanted to give a personal thanks to everybody that was involved.
Thank you, Councilman Tupper. And I'd also like to notice your efforts in all of this. You put in a lot of work to make this happen, but it really was the community getting together and making this happen and for the betterment of the community. So it's great. Thank you for your work, and thank you to all of our sponsors.
Whenever I can do something to better the community, and I'm just a big kid at heart anyhow, so throw some fireworks in it. It was fun. So,
all right. Any other public comments? Chair will now entertain a motion to approve tonight's agenda. Motion made by Councilman Vilhauer, seconded by Councilman Danforth. Any comments on that? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Regular agenda, item A is an application for a transfer of ownership of a retail malt beverage and South Dakota farm wine license and video lottery license from Barbara Hagen, doing business as Cattleman's Casino, to Cattleman's Casino at the same location. For more information, we will go to our city manager, Amanda Mack.
Thank you, Mayor. This has been publicly noticed. Everything is in order. The reason for this public hearing is a name change.
Thank you very much. Chair will open it up for public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to testify on this item? I will close the public hearing, open it up for council action. Is there a motion to approve the application? Motion made by Councilman Bueller, seconded by Councilman Paulson. Any questions or comments, council? Hearing none, the motion is to approve the application. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Item B is an application for a new retail malt beverage and South Dakota farm wine license to Casey's Retail Company, doing business as Casey's General Store. City Manager Mack, would you please tell us more?
Thank you, Mayor. This is a typical license. I'm trying to do Kristen justice in these explanations. Everything is in order. It was publicly noticed as appropriate, and I will not be able to answer any of your questions, but I'll try.
Thank you. Chair will open up a public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to testify on this item? Seeing no one come forward, I'll close the public hearing, open it up for council action. Is there a motion to approve the application?
So moved.
Made by Councilman Schutte, seconded by Councilman Tupper. Any questions or comments, council?
I do have a question,
Councilman
Mayor, if
Tupper.
I could. Could I get Ryan Remmers to step up? Oh, he left already. Now, there he is. He's probably tired of seeing me, too. Hey, did you recover your hat? I did. Okay. I just got a quick question. I know there's nothing we can do to go backwards, but as we go with more and more convenience stores and stuff selling off sale, do you feel that you guys got the resources to cover everything, or how much more has it put on your guys' plate? We've had how many new licenses all of a sudden?
Yeah, it hasn't been noticeable to us anyway. I think fortunately with the addition of the new licenses, they appeared to have good training and good people that they've hired on there. We don't have a higher percentage of failures when we do checks or anything either. So it seems to be going well from our standpoint.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments, council? Hearing none, the motion is to approve the application. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Item C is an application for a new retail malt beverage and South Dakota farm wine license to Casey's Retail Company, doing business as Casey's General Store. City Manager Mack, would you please tell us more?
Thank you, Mayor. Everything is in order with this application as well. It was publicly noticed as appropriate. And I'll stand by for questions.
Thank you. I'll open up a public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to testify on this? Seeing no one come forward, I will close the public hearing, open it up for council action. Is there a motion to approve the application? Made by Councilman Schutte, seconded by Councilman Tupper. Any questions or comments, council? Hearing none, the motion is to approve the application. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Item D is an application for a new retail malt beverage and South Dakota farm wine license to Apollo's Den. We'll go to our city manager, Amanda Mack, to tell us more.
Thank you, Mayor. This license request is for off-sale only. The applicant did apply to the Board of Adjustment for on-sale alcohol sales, and that request was denied. It was publicly noticed appropriately, and everything else is in order.
Thank you very much. I will open up a public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to testify on this item? Seeing no one come forward, I'll close the public hearing, open it up for council action. Is there a motion to approve the application? Made by Councilman Bueller, seconded by Councilman Paulson. Any questions or comments, council? Councilman Danforth.
Amanda, was it denied at that level? I'm assuming because of the location and is that what the reason
Yeah.
for denial was?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, the motion is to approve the application. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Item E is an application for a special retail on-sale license to the City of Watertown, doing business as Cattail Crossing, on Friday, July 15th, for the Pro-Am Golf Tournament. We'll go to our city manager, Amanda Mack, to tell us more.
Thank you, Mayor. Everything is in order for this application. This does not require a public hearing because it is being held at a publicly owned facility.
Thank you very much. Chair will entertain a motion to approve the application, made by Councilman Vilhauer, second by Councilman Bueller. Any comments on this? Councilman Vilhauer.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a question. How is this different from what we're allowed to sell out there currently?
City Attorney Roby.
Thank you, Mayor. We currently have a beer wine license out there. During the Pro-Am event, it sounds like they're trying to organize some sort of a activity that involves hard alcohol. And so this is a special event license that would allow them to sell hard alcohol during that time.
Okay. Thank you, man.
Yep.
Thank you very much. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, the motion is to approve the application. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Item F is a second reading of ordinance number 22-17, amending the zoning map of the City of Watertown from C3 Highway Commercial District to Planned Unit Development for city property along Roby Creek. We'll go to our Public Works Director, Heath Von Eye, for more information.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This is the second reading of this rezone. This is for that portion of land that is immediately adjacent to Roby Creek that's on the east side of the Montgomery's planned unit development that we've recently discussed and approved. If you recall the last meeting, we talked about land transfer details and how that land would be platted and portions of it allowed to be developed as part of the Montgomery's PUD. And this second reading of this rezone is simply to go in tandem with those previous actions and is brought to you by recommendation of the Planning Commission and city staff. I'll stand by for any questions.
Thank you very much. I will open up a public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to testify on this item? I'll close the public hearing, open it up for council action. Is there a motion to approve the amending of the zoning map?
So moved.
Made by Councilman Tupper, seconded by Councilman Paulson. Any questions or comments, council? The motion is to approve the amending of the zoning map. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Item G is a second reading of ordinance number 22-19, an amendment to chapter 21.54 GT1 Gateway Overlay District. We'll go to our Public Works Director, Heath Von Eye, to learn more.
Yes, thanks again, Mayor. As you cited, this again is the second reading of this ordinance amendment in Chapter 21 of the zoning ordinance and regulations for the city. It's specific to the Gateway Overlay District section of the zoning ordinance, and in that Gateway Overlay District, there are requirements regarding transition yards between the developed buildings in any Gateway Overlay District land. What we found is after we implemented the original Gateway Overlay District ordinance some handful of years back, we've had a handful of variance requests to those transition yards. And what this amendment does is proposes that they be reduced from 10 feet to 5 feet when commercial industrial properties are adjacent. The transition yard is proposed to be from 20 feet to 15 feet when commercial and residential are adjacent. And when industrial and residential properties are adjacent, transition yards would remain at 20 feet. So again, 20 feet between industrial, residential, reducing from 20 to 15 between commercial and residential, and reducing from 10 to 5 when commercial and industrial are adjacent. That's what this ordinance amendment would do. If you recall, we discussed some of the talking points at the last meeting under first reading were that some of these developed areas that were like in nature are the ones that we've seen requests for variances for. For instance, a hotel being adjacent to another hotel and their parking lot setbacks wanting to be closer than what the required transition yards were. Those have been some of the approved recent variance requests by the BOA. The theory behind that, once we get a handful of variance requests that are continually approved or routinely approved after a couple occurrences, we start to look at the ordinance, wonder if there should be change we should make in order to curb or correct any continual variance requests coming forward under the presumption they're going to always continue to be approved. So that, in a nutshell, is what brought this amendment change and or this change to the zoning ordinance. And Brandy Hanton, the Community Development Manager, and I will stand by for any questions you might have.
Thank you very much. Chair will entertain a motion to approve the amendment. Made by Councilman Tupper, seconded by Councilman Bueller. Any questions or comments, Council? Hearing none, the motion is to approve the amendment. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Item H is an approval of a change order number 1 for the PMP A Mill and AC Mat Construction, project number 2202 with Dunnick, for an increase of $610,280.25. We'll go to our Public Works Director, Heath Von Eye, for more information.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. We did enter into a contract with Dunnick Incorporated for annual pavement management program, Schedule A contract. That is the mill and overlay contract for annual city street work that we perform. We had an original city budget of $2 million when this went out for bid. We bid this project initially on a very conservative level for a couple different reasons. The primary one being we knew we had other project overruns within this year's what's called the 212 fund, the capital improvement fund for our city street projects. So we intentionally kept the quantities low on this particular project for any cost savings that we may want to roll over into any other project overruns, like 3rd Avenue. The 3rd Avenue Bridge and 3rd Avenue Reconstruct came in over budget, for example. So some of these funds were anticipated to be needed on that project to keep the 212 fund whole or balanced for 2022. Now that the dust has settled and we know where many of these other projects have come in at, including 5th Avenue, 12th Avenue, those reconstruct projects, and a multitude of others, what the city engineering division has done now is proposed an increase in the mill and overlay quantities. So Justin's put together a summary of streets with working closely with our street superintendent. The assistant city engineer has worked with the contractor to bring this change order forward for approval. And it doesn't quite get us to that full $2 million city budget for 2022's mill and overlay, but it's a lot closer, bringing that total contract amount up to just over $1.7 million. We did hold back that roughly $275,000 for known project overruns that we need those funds for in that 212 CIP budget. So that's why we didn't cap it out at the full $2 million with this change order. With that being said, I'll stand by for any further questions or discussion. And Assistant City Engineer Justin Peterson is here with us tonight too.
Thank you very much. Chair will entertain a motion to approve the change order. Made by Councilman Vilhauer, seconded by Councilman Paulson. Any questions or comments? Councilman Bueller.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Just a concern, and I did call Heath in advance with some questions today, and I guess my biggest concern was when we bid these projects and we bid them and they're very low, oftentimes they come in with a pretty large increase like that. And the question is, did we have other bidders? And in some instances we do, but I think we have to be cautious when we've got specific vendors that we work with. If the bids are coming in real low and they get the bid, and then we get the big increase, if that happens more than it should, I think that's something that should give us pause for a little concern. And I know, Heath, we also had, and I think this is more for the public's benefit, to know that we do watch those things. And the other part is to the quantity you and I discussed earlier on some of the materials, to bid it out with a higher volume on quantity to see if we can get a better price, if that's possible. But those are just some concerns I had, and I think it might be beneficial for folks to know about that. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilman Vilhauer.
Thank you, Mayor. I got a question for our Public Works Director, Von I. I had occasion to drive most of these streets over the course of the weekend, and I see that apparently in anticipation of approval tonight, there's barricades setting out ready to be set up and blocked off traffic. My question is, do we make any attempt to reach out to the neighborhood? I've had over the years on the council, I've had people comment to me that, hey, great that my street's getting taken care of, but I sure wish I would have known ahead of time when it was going to happen. Do we make any kind of effort to reach out to the neighborhood ahead of time, or through the media or public service announcements, or do we have anything in place? I think it'd be a good idea if we could let the neighborhood know when a project is going to be done in their street for parking purposes and whatnot, because it is an inconvenience when it is taking place, even though the end result is great.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for that question, Councilman Vilhauer. I can tell you that with certainty, we do have the contractor hand out flyers for our major reconstruct projects like 5th Avenue, 12th Avenue. They're going to have a longer term impact. I would have to ask Justin for sure on the mill and overlay. My assumption is that they provide some kind of notice there as well, but if I could call on Justin to explain the details on what kind of notifications we provide on the mill and overlay project.
Mayor, Justin Peterson, city engineer, or assistant city engineer. We send out PSAs, public service announcements, roughly a week before the project starts, and we ask the contractor to notify the local residents before the project occurs, just to give them a heads up of where to park and like garbage service and all that kind of stuff. So.
Thank you. Follow up?
Justin, do we know, do the contractors then take it upon themselves to contact the neighborhood? I mean, do we follow up? Is that part being done?
They usually send out letters or
okay.
Hangers or.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilman Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess a question for the engineering department would be, with the 60% increase roughly in the project, was there any discussion at lowering the unit price because of the increased volume? Because if this was the other way, and we weren't asking them to do this, and they were asking us for a change order, they would be asking for a change in unit price. So, I know our specifications read that way, that if there's a large change in the quantity, that unit price discussion should happen. So I didn't know if that was part of this.
Director Von High, any comments?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councilman. So the unit price on the asphalt under this contract is $91 a ton. Engineering staff, they did perform an analysis of that. They looked at it in comparison to previous year's bid. Last year's bid was about $91 a ton. They also compared it to other bids this year that have come in upwards of $100 to $120 a ton, depending on the project. So we felt that this was a very competitive bid price for the unit pricing, and therefore did not negotiate a lower unit price on the asphalt, just based on that research that we did.
Thank you. Any Councilman Danforth?
Either Justin or Heath, and when we're done here, roughly, how many blocks of mill and overlay and such will we see here with the addition?
Do you have an estimate on that, Justin, by chance?
You're asking additional blocks
How many in total?
total?
Yeah. The reason why is people always complain about the roads. It's good for us to be able to communicate not just dollars, but actual, how many blocks are we in fact getting done, so people can kind of relate that to something.
I'm estimating it'd be upwards of probably 40 blocks, maybe. The hard one is that there are, like Hidden Valley, for example. That's a very long stretch, and that's probably equivalent to 3 or 4 blocks there. So probably about 40,
Okay.
estimating.
So it gives the public an idea.
Thank you. Councilman Bueller.
Thank you, Heath, or, excuse me, Public Works Director Van Noy. I gotta get used to doing that. Did we get another bidder for that project?
On the mill and overlay, no, just the sole bidder. Dunick Incorporated was the only bidder.
Thank you.
Councilman Tupper.
Director Von Eyck, this doesn't include any of the crack seal or chip seal projects, right?
Correct, that is not.
And what, do you remember off the top of your head what we had budgeted for that part, or if you don't, it's not a big deal, but roughly?
I don't off the top of my head. I'm looking at Justin to see if he recalls the budget for that project.
I believe that one was bid somewhere around the neighborhood of 400,000. That could be high, but
Councilman Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess with one of the previous comments, I just want to reiterate to the public that we are spending a lot of money on our roads, and we continually see and hear comments that why would we spend any money anywhere else in our community other than the roads? And that's just not a fair statement. And we are spending a lot of time and effort and money on our roads to improve them. And we try to get up, we're doing above 50 blocks roughly. I mean, you just heard just the mill and overlays at roughly 40. There's other reconstruction projects. These roads are getting done, and we are focusing on them. And I guess those comments that we can't spend money elsewhere, I just think are out of line, just because of where we are. And I just wanted to reiterate that we are spending a ton of money on roads.
Thank you, Councilman. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, the motion is to approve the change order. All those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Item I is an approval of a change order with Dan Hart Patrol Services for landfill cell number 7 for an increase of roughly $440,000. We'll go to our Public Works Director, Heath Von Eyck, for more information.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This is one of those projects that you really don't know what's going on until you hear that it's going on. So we are digging a new landfill cell out at the landfill south of town. It's labeled as project for landfill cell number 7. We've been under construction now for a good couple months here with the selected contractor. And the reason this change order has come before the council tonight is due to an encounter of undesirable conditions, soil conditions that were exposed and encountered during the excavation of the new cell. What that triggered then was a multitude of trickle-down effects for the contractor. They had to bring in other equipment that wasn't conventional that they would have had on site for the original scope of work for the project in order to mitigate these soil conditions, and then also excavate my engineering term for the bad soil is escaping me, so I apologize. But they had to mitigate the soil conditions, which took an extensive amount of cost and time and material to do so. So that's why this change order grew to the amount that it did. It's a $440,000 change order, and we do, however, have funds in the solid waste management program. We received a $400,000 grant for this project and a $1.4 million clean water SRF loan along with a $212,000 ARPA grant for funding for this cell construction. We feel that the amount left over after all that is taken into consideration can be taken out of the Solid Waste Management Fund without negatively impacting it, and therefore staff is recommending approval of this change order. Our consultant engineer, Houston Engineering, is here tonight, and they can help answer any detailed questions. But in a nutshell summary, that's what we're facing here this evening for approval.
Thank you very much. Chair will entertain a motion to approve the change order. Made by Councilman Danforth, second by Councilman Tupper. Any questions or comments, Council? Councilman Danforth.
Heath, do we, on projects like that, do we normally do like, deep soil borings in order to make a determination of whether we have the proper soil content down there? I do not know the proper engineering term, so the good soil. Is that, I always thought that we did do soil borings and stuff to, kind of a matrix through there to find out what our expectation was for soil. Is that true or not true out there?
Yes, Councilman Danforth. That is the first question I asked when this came to me, is whether we did those or not. And I had a very good explanation on the circumstances here. A couple of reasons that the soil exploration wasn't performed maybe as blanketly as we would have hoped in hindsight to prevent something like this from happening, is that we had 6 prior cells that had no encounter of undesirable soil conditions that we needed to mitigate. So we had that experience to go off first of all. The other issue that was maybe more paramount is that this excavation is located right next to old original cell number 1. And we don't have good records on cell number 1. And so not knowing where the clay cap for cell number 1 lies, or the clay liner for cell number 1, what we didn't want to do is go poking holes in the ground through soil borings and then puncture cell number 1 and then end up in perpetuity having to mitigate leachate issues from cell number 1. So we kind of stepped back, did an analysis to that degree, and decided it wasn't in our best interest to do soil borings on this footprint for cell 7, at least to the extent that would have caught something like this. There's a possibility we could have even done soil borings but still missed this area based on the randomness of how you would perform soil borings. So with all that being said, that's the explanation that I got that I felt was a pretty good explanation why we went the route that we did.
Follow-up, Councilman?
Yeah, thank you, Heath. So is it safe to say that had we done them and had we encountered this, we would still have made 7 cell as it is? We just would have had a known higher cost. Is that fair?
That's a fair assumption.
We wouldn't have said move it. We would have taken care of it within the land confines that we have out there.
Correct.
Okay,
And
that's
under
important.
under this scenario, we avoided puncturing cell number 1 and causing those leachate issues.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much.
Councilman Vilhauer.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess probably it's probably a follow-up comment or question to Councilman Danforth. I'm looking at our City Attorney Roby. I'm thinking back to my business law days. I mean, is this, as you understand it, is this something that does qualify? I mean, that is allowable to be amended? I mean, this is a pretty sizable addition to the contract. I mean, Matt, is this something that that should have been known ahead of time, or is this a legitimate request to amend the contract?
Excuse me. Well, I'm not sure if I understand. Are you talking from a public bidding perspective?
No, I'm just, like I said, I'm thinking back to my business law days. There are certain things that what unforeseen circumstances versus, I forget what the other terminology is, that somebody should have known about this, that now that's come to their attention. That's just too bad. We don't have to pay more for what they should have done. What I'm hearing is this is something that wasn't reason to have known about ahead of time, and therefore it is a legitimate request to increase the contract price. I just want to make sure that we are approving something that is legitimate here.
Yeah, in all honesty, I've not looked at this contract specifically. I guess I would have looked at it back when it was originally approved, but not for this discussion this evening. So just taking what the Public Public Works Director said at his word, I assume that the language allows for this type of amendment should change circumstances be found. And then, of course, it's up to us to approve it. So it's a two-party contract. So if we decide to say thanks but no thanks, I mean, that's certainly within our rights. But again, just taking Heath at his word here, I assume that the contract allows for this type of amendment.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Tupper?
Could I have the gentleman from Dan Hart step up, answer a question?
He's actually from Houston Engineering, sorry.
Houston Engineering, excuse me, I'm sorry.
Just please identify yourself.
Turn the microphone on.
My name is Dennis McAlpine with Houston Engineering.
Okay, just a quick question, and this is more for the public that's watching in to understand what kind of soil you found that increased it that much. Can you kind of explain the differences in the soil just so the public kind of understand? Well, and me, not just the public, so hole's a hole to me, I guess. But.
Yeah, if you actually wouldn't mind, I did prepare a presentation. I don't think don't need to go into all of it, but I can share some photos. We did take some aerial photography through the project, so I guess I can just steam ahead here a couple slides in. This happens to be a photo just from today, right before the rain, so we're able to sneak out there. But if we sneak ahead here, we did a very limited boring exercise here. So this was, in 2021, an adjacent. We were very cautious as it relates to cell 1. As Public Works Director Von I had indicated, it's pretty sensitive. There is no information known. So, this is in 2021 where we thought we had a good understanding of where it was. This is I guess a cross section that shows this connection of cell 1. This is cell 7. It's much deeper, but there is this, unknown area that's in between. If we steam ahead here, this is really what we found. We are right now in this photo, we are looking to the east, and about at the bottom of the organics here would have been the top of our cell, our baseliner grade. So, there's a combination of this highly organic, gravelly type material, and then a saturated clay. So this is a highly fractured clay. You can tell the nature of its fractures by the grains and then the discoloration here. This is this is noted where there's hydric conditions. There's a lot of water here at this time. So, this is a lot of the removals that need to take place. I have a cross section here. This is the extent of the area. So we did do borings along this side and just so happened to not find it. We actually hopscotched over it because we only took a handful of them. As was said earlier in the discussion, we've built there's been 6 cells built out here, hundreds of thousands of yards removed. There was no indication that we would have to do an elaborate study. So what we ended up doing is raising the baseliner 4 feet to get separation from those, the organics, and B, the saturated soil, so that you had a liner section that was had integrity and would be able to maintain its density. So, this is the extent aerial. Here we are June into the project. It's a significant amount of removals where it's wet, saturated, organic. I guess, a compliment to our contractor. They were able to mobilize very quickly. You can see this is a matter of, 2 weeks. And here we are establishing base grades at the higher elevation. So, and this is where we're at today. So, really a lot of progress. We are on the eve of placing the sand drainage layer. So, well done. So I probably gave you a little bit more maybe than you were asking, but apologies.
Thank you. That explains it not only to me, but I'm sure a lot of the people in the public that are watching, because you start talking, that's a pretty good percentage difference, and the reason we haven't had to on the other ones, and kind of the answer to part of Mike's is why didn't we bore more, and of course we've dug enough holes there, we didn't foresee that happening. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any further comments, council? Hearing none, the motion is to approve the change order. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Item J is an approval of the development agreement for tax increment financing district number 19. We'll go to our city attorney, Matt Roby, for more information.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just Having difficulty with my new technology here for some reason. Anyway, TIF 19, the actual plan was approved recently. This is the follow-up to approval of the plan. It's a development agreement that will contain the plan as an exhibit and be filed with the Register of Deeds to live on into perpetuity. One unique factor, typically these development agreements more or less just reflect what's been approved in the plan, and this is no different. The uniqueness of this TIF, and they all have something a little bit unique, is that a portion of the TIF boundary for TIF 19 overlaps TIF number 5's boundary, which is a TIF that benefits the city. And so as you recall, the approval of the TIF contained the contingency that 50% of the increment revenue derived from that overlapping area will be paid to the city until the expiration of TIF number 5, which will occur at the end of the year 2030. And that's spelled out in the agreement as well.
Thank you. Chair will entertain a motion to approve the TIF made by Councilman Bueller, seconded by Councilman Schutte. Any questions or comments, Council? Councilman Schutte.
Thank you, Mayor. Just maybe a few questions here for Public Works Director Von Eye. For City Attorney Roby. Exhibit B on the contract here, it's blank on the project plan. I noticed it didn't have the specifics on what the dollar and amounts where they're going to be allotted for. So I was just curious, is that did I miss that, or is that resource somewhere else, or?
So the version that's on the agenda, I believe you're correct, just has a placeholder for Exhibit A and Exhibit B. The Exhibit B is the plan itself, which was approved. So once it gets filed, then we insert the plan's already been approved by the council. So I'll take the plan that was approved by council, label it Exhibit B, attach it to this document. Exhibit A, we'll take the resolutions that were approved. Once we have signatures on them, attach them as Exhibit A. And so so currently those are just placeholder pages.
Okay, thank you. And because the reason I was asking that question was the items that they're going to be, if it's infrastructure, whatever the project is going to consist of. I noticed that in section 3.01B, it talked about a timetable by July 1, 2026. So about 4 years or so from now. And I was just curious if that is that everything then, the TIF, the TIF 19, including everything from TIF 5 previously. So that would be everything new within the boundaries of TIF 19. That's all got to be done. All the infrastructure. Well, I'm not sure what all the points were. I guess I didn't see what they plan on doing with this. But everything that is planned to be done, it has to all be done in the next 4-year period then?
That's correct, Councilman. That was the date that was indicated in the plan. The developer hoped to have that completed. We hasn't come up because of the number of TIFs that have been approved in the last 4 years. We haven't actually met the deadlines yet. But in theory, if the developer, for some reason fails to move forward, it kind of becomes a moot point because if there's no development, there's no revenue. But in theory, if they fail to move forward and meet that deadline, the city could sever the contract. But that was the date that was indicated in the TIF plan, was middle of the year, July 2026.
Okay, yeah, all right, thank you. Because that was my concern there was, because some of this is a previous TIF 5. I'm not sure what the timetable was on that TIF, but they're extending that now 4 more years to finish whatever development, I guess, that was maybe not officially done in that particular TIF.
Oh, I apologize, Mayor. Sorry, I'm overstepping here. I misunderstood your question. So when the city in 2007, so there's kind of a little bit of a rabbit hole here, but the city actually approved that TIF in 2007, but the record at the state says the TIF started in 2010. So we're just going with that. When the city approved the TIF, the infrastructure was put in by the city. So Willow Creek Drive and the associated infrastructure were the expenditures of TIF 5. The development that was to occur in that boundary, which was to pay back what the city put into that infrastructure, of course, has been slower, I think, than was anticipated. But that was the deal we struck with this developer was, okay, part of your boundary overlaps our TIF number 5 boundary. And so, through just a negotiation, we said, what if you pay us 50% of the revenue until our TIF expires? And so that's 2030. Did I come close to answering your question?
It does. Just one more, if I could, Mayor, one more final question on that. So, yeah, thank you,
Yep.
Mr. Roby. So with that, I guess you touched on it briefly, but I guess if something happens and we're to July 1, 2026, depending on where the status is, I guess that's just something we got to address then. We can't look back on previous projects and kind of go on. We have a standard that we follow. It's kind of a new territory, you're saying, if something isn't officially done by then, or?
Well, I think maybe what you're getting at, I mean, so that was kind of the impetus for that negotiation was it's the chicken or the egg discussion where if we didn't approve TIF 19 with these boundaries, they would be less incentivized to build there. And so if they're not going to actually build there, we're not going to get paid back on our TIF anyway. And so if you're asking whether or not there'd be some sort of financial penalty if they failed to move forward, that was not part of the discussion. It would just merely be the ability to cancel the TIF, which would, again, if there was no development, there'd be no revenue anyway.
Okay, yep, thank you.
Yep.
Any further comments, council? Hearing none, the motion is to approve the TIF. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. We'll go to item G that was on the consent agenda, which is an authorization for the finance officer to issue a special check to cover all costs associated with the land purchase for the ice arena facility to First Dakota Title. We'll go to our city manager, Amanda Mack.
Thank you, Mayor. This is, trying to think how to explain this. So, we have an AP process that has a cutoff date every month. We pay bills once a month. I believe Matt approached Kristen last week or the week before that we thought we were getting close to closing on the purchase of the land for the ice arena. And so this authorizes the finance officer to issue that check when it does close, if it's outside the normal accounts payable timeline. A reminder that I believe the purchase price was $500,000 and some ancillary costs, closing costs, things like that. So this really, it's not a new thing. It's just giving permission to write the check when the closing occurs.
Thank you. Chair will entertain a motion to authorize for the finance officer to issue a special check. Made by Councilman Tupper, seconded by Councilman Vilhauer. Any comments, council?
Mayor, if I could just say one thing.
City Attorney Roby?
Yeah, that Amanda hit, or City Manager Mack hit the nail on the head there. One other piece as well, the reason there's no dollar amount in there is because of the end change piece of it. You know, there's gonna be some closing costs, and so it's gonna be 500,000, give or take, depending on the closing costs. And so we didn't wanna put a dollar amount in there that would require us to then come back to council again if it was 505 or 501,000 or whatever that might be in change. So that's the reasoning for that.
Thank you. Any further comments? Hearing none, the motion is to approve the authorization of the special checks. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. We are done with the agenda for tonight. Is there any old business?
Yes.
Councilman Bueller.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to remind everyone, at some point last year, we looked at the possibility of hiring Stockwell Engineering to reevaluate our park system. And we had lengthy discussion about that at the Park and Rec Board. And I will say that I think it'd be a really good idea for us to reconsider. I think it was actually removed from the agenda, from the city council agenda, for us to look at. And I know we've had discussions recently about consulting fees, but I think I would support that 100%, that we reevaluate that. We can bring that back. I'm just making the suggestion, I'll make that suggestion to our city manager, Mac, that we put this on the agenda for our next meeting and perhaps have Director Park Director Kelly come and speak to that issue. I think it's really important that we do that. So just want to make everybody aware that I'd like to see us go in that direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further old business? Councilman Danforth.
It's old only because this has taken a long time. Heath Van Eye and I have talked in the past about this off council here. But I'm getting concerns and complaints again about the lack of completion of the restored house up on 14th. Heath, you and I had talked about that, you know, and I think you had shared with me because it's a historical house or something. I believe I think some of the allowances are slightly different. Maybe could you just or someone share with us? You know, these projects shouldn't go on forever, and this has been a long time already. And the people that are living up there and invested up there, I'll be honest, they're getting tired of it. And so I am getting emails, I'm getting calls. I go Thursday Night Live. Somebody will stop me and talk to me about it. So Heath, can you just share where that process is at and what's allowable in a scenario like that?
Director Von Eye.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councilman. Timely question. Just had discussions with staff on this today. There's a couple different components we're working on with the developers of the Olive House property up there on the corner of 2nd and 14th. One has to do with the building permit in general and the lack of progress towards completion of meeting all the terms that were in the approved building permit. How the Chapter 5 and Chapter 21 building and zoning ordinances read are that the building permit for residential structure is good for a 12-month duration. The building official has the ability to extend the completion date on the project for up to another 12 months. It does not, however, give a moratorium on the number of extensions they can receive. However, there is other language in the ordinance that we dug a little deeper to discover that before contemplating additional extensions, a schedule or timeline by the builder can be required to be presented to the council before another 12-month extension. The most recent portion of the active building permit expired this January of 22. So anything being done since then has been on an expired permit. So I've worked with Community Development Manager Hanton and the building official Jason Spurgeon to provide the appropriate correspondence back to the builder, requiring them to put together a timeline or a schedule for the completion of the work and to have that information available to present to council before the building official would approve another 12-month extension on the building permit. Now, sideline to that, we're also dealing with fencing issues. There's some new fence monument posts that have gone in recently under that expired permit. Unfortunately, a couple of them are of concern because they're in the site triangles on 2nd Street and 4th Street. So we're trying to get those removed from those site triangles and working through the appropriate channels that we need to in order to make that happen.
Follow up, Councilman?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Heath, how many extensions, so you got the original building permit, how many extensions have we done? One?
No, I believe three in totality.
Okay, so
Since 2018 is when the original building permit went
I was
out.
going to say, we're 4 years into this, and
Yeah,
I think, you know, we've had to do this in the past, and I love the fact that it's getting restored. I love that kind of stuff, but it needs to be respectful and mindful for those people that are living in that area, and to date, it's really not. It's kind of past that. So I appreciate you guys discussing it and looking to bring that to us, because it needs to be, at least externally, it needs to be brought to completion in some manner.
Councilman Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. I am also getting a lot of complaints and comments about this. Same thing, and I've had asked a few questions too, but I know that they signed an original development agreement in July of 18. And I don't know what that development agreement says exactly for timeline for finishing stuff, but outside of the building permit, do we have any pushback from that standpoint?
I would have to refer to that development agreement, but I could refer to Brandy Hanton, the community development manager. But I would say that the building permit is a pretty formal conduit to channel any restrictions, regulations, requirements back onto the builder based on not only our city ordinances but also the building code. It's explicit in our ordinances, and I believe the building code as well, that ongoing projects like this that linger do become public nuisances. They become eyesores, whatever you want to call them. We just don't want it to linger. We do want to see completion under any permit that's issued. So that's our goal that we're striving towards through those building permit requirements.
Councilman Tupper?
So where do we draw the line? Put it that way. Excuse me, this is for Director Von Eye. Where do we draw the line? There's got to be a line in the sand someplace where enough is enough. And what's the city's recourse when we get to that point?
Yeah, all good questions. Where again, we'd rely if we had to go further down this road, which I'm optimistic that we won't have to once this next phase of discussions occurs and this one additional 12-month extension happens. I think that the builder, the owner and their builder know full well the sensitivities that we've represented to them, that we've discussed here tonight. And they too want to see it through to completion. And again, they're doing a wonderful project. It's going to be a great historic finished piece once it is done. Some of the historic factors that Councilman Danforth alluded to earlier have been a factor in some of the delays. And I would let the owner and their builder kind of explain some of that when they present their timeline. But I don't want to discredit the fact that they're doing something nice that's going to look great in the community and be a nice piece of property once it's complete. But getting to that point, if we have to pursue further mitigation options, that's where I'd start digging further into the city ordinances, building codes, relying on our city attorney to help wade through those next steps. I don't know what those are yet at this point. I haven't researched that far ahead, but I don't doubt that there's forms of mitigation in our ordinances or the building code to address the issue.
Mayor, follow up. Actually, this is for City Attorney Roby. Is there any way when they come before the city again for another extension on a building permit that we could ask them to address the council? Because we're the ones that are getting all the questions on it from the community. Or is that not a legal factor? Or?
Well, I guess this is the first I'm hearing about it. I think ultimately it would probably be Amanda's call, the city manager's call, what the interplay with the council would be from that perspective. Because it would be, I would assume the ordinances give the proper authorities to staff in certain instances. But if it has become a public concern for the council, perhaps the city manager would deem that appropriate that they come before the council. I don't know.
Part of the discussion has been with them presenting an updated timeline and updated progress report on the project. So whenever those conversations that Director Von Eye was talking about occur and something does come in front of the council, then I'm open to having them speak to you all.
Thank you. Thank you. Any further old business? Any new business? Any liaison member reports? Any announcements? City Manager Mack.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a reminder to all of you, and it's been shared out in the public today, but we are having a public information session on the ice arena. It'll be Thursday evening at 5:30. We will have it in the police department community room. We had originally said it would be here in Chambers, but it conflicts with the planning commission meeting. Myself, Keith, the mayor, Tom, Betty, our architect, Dick Strasberg, our owner's rep, Matt, we all will be sharing information as it relates to the ice arena, current estimates, current fundraising numbers, and our path forward for getting that thing completed and ground broken sometime in August. So we invite the public to come out and listen to the presentation, and there'll be an opportunity for comment and questions after that. So please join us.
Thank you very much. Councilman Danforth?
Man, if I can, I'm just going to piggyback on what you just suggested. But, you know, it really isn't a design review. It's really a project type of interaction with the community to look at levels of support and but I think I really want to see, I'd love to see that room packed. I don't care if you're for the ice or against the ice, or you just need to educate yourself. Take the time to go to this meeting and listen and share your thoughts, because it's hard for us on our side of this table. It's hard for us to know where the public's at on this if they don't step forward and tell us where they're at. We can read Facebook, but only the Lord really knows what's going on there. But so I really want to encourage people to mark it on your calendar and to please come and let us know where you're at with your thoughts and ideas on this. I think that's very important.
Any further announcements?
Mayor?
Director Von Eye?
Yes, I'd like to report to the council that the bid opening for the City Hall remodel has been pushed back a week. So instead of July 12th bid opening, we're looking at a July 19th, roughly. And that will delay the presentation of those bids to the council from July 18th to the first meeting in August. There was a request from contractors to postpone that bid opening so that they had more and ample time to review the project. There's a couple other projects going out there, Ice Arena bid being one of them at the current time that this one is, so we thought we'd accommodate and provide that extension. I just want to update the council on that timeline.
Any further announcements? There is no need to go into executive session, therefore the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn. Made by Councilman Tupper, seconded by Councilman Bueller. All those in favor of adjournment, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Good night, and God bless you, Watertown.